Clear called Atomic Habits. Have any of you read it?
I have not.
Okay, I had a mother of one of the U18 teams give it to me, and I'm adding it to my top 5 list right now because it's all about, in hockey we talk about good habits and bad habits, and just off the top of your head, guys, with the teams you've coached at the various levels you've coached at, what are some habits that players need to change, correct?
For me, two things actually jump into my head immediately are self-awareness and accountability.
So can you be specific about like the idea of a bad habit of just simplicity, the stick off the ice, not ready for a pass is a habit.
Sure.
So not a solution lies in self-awareness.
Accountability in general, I think, is a way I would explain that, how that would be something to work on. As a skill, I think it's a skill as much as anything else. It's a mental skill for sure. But I think that is when something happens, again, ties into the self-awareness, assessing what happened. And so did I not get the pass because it was in my feet? Did I not get the pass because my stick wasn't down? Was the goal scored because I back-checked to the wrong side of the player? So it's a mental thing. So it's not as fine-tuned as you're saying as sticks should be on the ice, which that is one of them for sure. In the defensive zone, they skate around like they got a flag on the end of their sticks most of the time, and they're waving the flag as opposed to just having it on the ice. But to me, at any level, especially the older levels, being accountable for what you're doing, I think that's a skill too. Mental skill, but still a skill.
Yeah. See, you're too far advanced for the level I'm working at. I'm talking U13 and U15 girls, because these are habits that they're in the middle of developing, and you want to develop good ones versus bad. So it's not about accountability. It's about how do you deal with changing it, and how do you make them aware, and how do you make them accountable to the point where they begin to keep their sticks on the ice, not turn their back on the puck. Those are two simple things.
Wally, I think the easiest way to show them, I don't know if you do much of that, but I got to guess in today's world, every parent is voraciously filming their child's shift with their phone. But the easiest way is just show them, right? I mean, you can talk about it all you want and say, I don't think you're keeping your stick down in the defensive zone. Well, I think I am. Well, here's a video. Here's a picture of you with your stick up in the air, so we can see you need to work on this. Here you reached for the puck instead of moved your feet. Here you are. That's you, right? You're number 4, unless somebody stole your jersey. That's you. So, right? That's you. So that way, I think that's, to me, because everything they learn, everything is so visual with that generation now. This is what they're growing up with. That being able to show them it's good because it's a great teaching tool, and there's no discussion when I show you a picture of, that's you.
So if you either of you ever had a parent specifically look for that and try to point it out to their child?
I think parents take it and they show the kids, and depending upon how you approach it, as you well know, especially with young teenagers and young ladies and boys of that age, that it's really easy for them to just tune you out depending upon how you approach them with it. More like showing them the video and saying, hey, let's look at your shift. What did you see?
Yeah. Well, I'm in the middle of dealing with a couple simple habits at a young age, and the stick length, the stick on the ice one, and turning your back on the puck are sort of the fixation right now because I see it too often, and I see it too often with turning the back, especially with the most talented players. And it's one thing to know it, but it's another thing to appreciate how important it is to becoming an elite performer at a more competitive level. You know, the step of holding them accountable is sort of them becoming aware of it and being accountable on their own volition for that. In this book, Atomic Habits by James Cleary, he doesn't refer to habits as good or bad. They're habits. It's something you can't stop doing. And you may need to change if you want to improve moving forward. So I like that thinking, and that turning your back isn't bad. It's just a habit. It's something that you can do differently and avoid, but how do you accomplish that? So I have a drill, Hal. You might try it at your practice, and it's a simple cross-ice scrimmage, and it's easiest done with stick on the ice rule. They just scrimmage, cross ice, 3-on-3. As they do, as you notice the stick being off the ice, you blow the whistle. And everybody does a push-up, but the offender does 3. And when I've done this before, I've had to tell the coaches on the ice, don't tell the person who did it 3 push-ups. Wait to see if they're aware that they were the one who turned their back or who had their stick off the ice. And the challenge I had with the coaches was avoiding them interrupting and pointing the finger to them, you were wrong, you were wrong. It didn't allow the player to think about themselves and whether they were the ones needing the attention. So I just do this two rules, and I don't do them in the same practice. One would be a cross-ice scrimmage with a stick on the ice rule, and the next one would be a turn your back on the puck rule, or overskate or overplay the puck, which is most evident in D-zone cover at the U15 level, where they can skate pretty fast. They overskate. They don't know how to contain skating in terms of controlling their speed, so they lose the side. So those sub skills have to be practiced to control your skating defensively more than they're learning the tools of how to contain. But the habit of doing that, the habit in a game, is making them aware of it. And the push-up rule game, to me, his work for me, in my mind, it's a pretty simple way of dealing with it in a drill, in a game, and maybe doing that and making sure they understand why is it important and telling you why is it important. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, right? I mean, I think you have to, depend on who you have as a team and, you know, what their abilities are, right? You got to find those ways to make them aware. And that's what you're doing, right? I mean, one thing that I used to do too with some drills, again, we're trying to keep your stick on the ice, was I would have one team, similar to what you're doing, 3-on-3. I'd have one team stick, offensive team would have the puck, stick on the ice. Defensive team would have to turn their sticks over. And it was interesting that when they had to turn their sticks over, they actually relied so much more on that stick, and it was on the ice so much more because that's all they had was the end of that stick to try to poke the puck, steer, and turn. So it was interesting to me, at least the groups I worked with, they really seemed to be better at keeping their stick on the ice when it was actually turned over. And they were using it, like I say, to poke, check, and redirect. So that part was interesting to me.
Well, I've found that when Tom Malloy and myself over the years, we have defensemen turn their sticks over playing rushes. And when you turn the stick over in a D zone drill, one-on-one, they have to position better.
Right.
And it's not about the stick being on the ice. I think in my situation, they have to control their skating. They have to stride, not cross over. And if they rely on the stick, they're reaching with the stick and they're not maintaining a gap. So there's the tactical benefit there is even playing rushes with no sticks, learning to stride, use your arms properly, keep the defender on the outside with your alignment, being able to pivot and skate them off, or surf and skate them off on a rush.
I've done that. The defensemen really love that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. And we did it years ago with the national men's team where they had to skate with their hands behind their back, which really made them stride only, and then their hands free, which allowed them to get that north-south rhythm. Forward skating is more of a north-south, east-west rhythm, lateral movement, but in backward striding, it's a different physical movement. So
Well,
there's so much teaching detail.
Or Hal, did you ever see the video? This goes back a few years ago when Denver, I think when they won the national title, and they were at one of their practices, as they were out into the playoffs, and their sticks didn't show up, and they did an entire practice without their sticks, but they simulated everything.
Yeah.
So they actually did the drill simulating making a pass. Another player simulated catching a pass. The D would, go back and play the 2-on-1, and sometimes, and they were clever about it. Sometimes the D would play it as if the puck got through. Sometimes they would play it as if they broke it up. The goaltender was tracking the players. It was pretty interesting. I think they did it for I don't think the whole practice, but a fair portion of it. It was pretty fun to watch. Just you talk about knowing the game and being in your body in the right position, and that was pretty fun to watch.
I've heard that one before, and it's awareness. It's a different approach to think about what you're doing and how you're doing it, and it gets the mind, it gets the wheels turning, thinking about those things. So,
and they were all invested, so that was nice.
Yeah. Now listen, Boston University, they call it BU Mondays. That they dedicate their Monday morning practices to defensive tactical skating and tactical play. I've got a number of links on my site about it, but boy, they're teaching transition skating and striding and gap control over and over again in a real deliberate fashion. So those are just things to think about. And hell, if you could try that rule, cross-ice scrimmage rules, I'm trying to get coaches to, number one, teach good habits, which means you're breaking old ones. Nope. And there's that. And I'm glad Kim has joined. Hi, Kim.
Hey, Wally, can you hear me okay?
I sure can. Kim, I began by talking about the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Have you read it?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Well, we're on the same page here, and I'm in the middle of trying to get minor hockey girls to keep their sticks on the ice at the elite U13 and 15 levels and not turn their back on the puck, but to always face the puck and have that habit ingrained somehow. And we've been talking about, I'll get Hal to mention again his thinking. And Hal, you go ahead on the accountability piece, which is sort of the elite level. You're trying to hold them accountable to it. Could you talk about that, Peter?
Sure. I think that's a skill. I think as I said, I think it's a mental skill that ties into what you're talking about. And again, we talked about how I think the easiest way to teach that is with video, to show them what they are and are not doing. Because very often in the heat of a play, the quickness of things, sometimes they don't realize what they are or are not doing. And showing them the video, obviously that's you, like we talked about, that's who you are, right? That's you, your number, whatever it is. And you're there, and potentially maybe you're not the one with your stick. Maybe you're not on a 2-on-1. Maybe you're not trying to deny the pass. So being accountable for, yeah, that's something that I need to work on, not to lay blame in any way, because it's, it's a game of mistakes, really, right? In so many ways that it just makes everyone better by getting that atmosphere where if everyone's accountable too, you can really have, again, at the higher levels, you can really have some great video sessions where if you got a really good setup with your team culture, people can begin to, if you will, critique each other a little bit, and they can buy into that. And I've had players say, that was me, I should have picked this guy up. And then all of a sudden, the teammate will chip in right away and just say, no, you know what? If you watch, I should have back checked to the inside and picked that guy up. Like, you might have had that issue going on, but I could have helped you. So I think it does breed the accountability with the video of what they do, and then a good culture and speaking about it and being open, if you can develop that.
Kim, have you ever used video to that level?
Oh, definitely. Well, I was going to share a little anecdote because I missed one of our U9 rep games recently that my daughter's on the team. And so I watched her shifts at night. I should have watched the whole game, but I didn't have time. And I watched her shifts, and she always has two hands on her stick, and the stick's always in the air. Now, she chases the puck down really well. She has the puck quite a bit. She plays D. But in her races, she's always got two hands. And I guess I hadn't noticed it before, or maybe I wasn't as aware of it. But in that game, it was almost every single time. And so I mentioned it to her casually, as a coach can only do, right? A parent coach. There's nothing casual about it, right? In passing, hey, Sasha, like, you should probably have your stick on the ice. And, I'm noticing in the video. And she's like, I don't do that. I have one hand on the stick. And I'm like, well, just watch the video and pretty sure you had two hands on your stick. She's like, no, when I want to go fast, I have one. And then her 5-year-old sister starts chiming in. Even I know you should only have one hand on your stick. So I created a whole saga between the 5-year-old and the 7-year-old. But, I thought to myself, she just needs to see it, right? She's telling me she doesn't do that. She's telling me yesterday in practice, I'm saying, you got to face the puck. Like, you're getting turnstiled, turning around when you're defending because you don't know where the puck is. She's like, I don't do that. Well, you just did. Now, maybe that's just a parent coach. She's never going to listen piece of it. But I definitely have used it to point out habits. I think it's critical because players sometimes just aren't aware of things like that. There's a difference between, maybe, why did you pick that shot, or why did you make that pass, or why didn't you make that pass? But if it's just, habits like how we're holding our stick, or turning the right way, or, scanning the ice, I think that's really easy to pick up. And it's not right or wrong. I think that's always a challenge with the girls. And I'm constantly on them it's about making a decision, and your choices are your choices. They're not the right choice or the wrong choice. They're just the choice you made in that moment. But, holding your stick properly and always facing the puck aren't really choices. They're just sort of categorically correct things to do. So I think those are easy targets to hit when doing video with players, because they're just always kind of the right thing, versus video with players that can be a little bit more challenging when it's when you're challenging their decision making in that moment. I think that habit videos are a lot easier way to introduce video and make people feel comfortable.
Kim, what about, and all of you, when you're showing video of mistakes or bad habits, there's sort of that negativity of pointing that kind of thing out. And some players are extremely sensitive to it. What's the fine line between being able to look at negative clips for your own team and players and not and being able to still motivate them to correct that habit?
For me, Wally, it was, I never really called anyone out individually because there's never a reason to do that on video because they're looking at that. So I would approach it, and let's say there was a play like 2-on-1 and our defenseman does not deny the puck. Right? I wouldn't approach it that way saying, look, we didn't deny the puck here. I would look at it and I would say, what should we have done here that would have been more effective, and how could we have done it? Because now they're thinking about it, and you've taken the emphasis off, hey, look, number whatever, look what you just did. You know, we're talking about it as a group, and they're much more willing to accept it. And typically what I found with that was that individual that made the mistake will be the first one to step up and say, yeah, you know what I should have done? I should have had my stick better in that passing lane, and I should not have cheated over or something like that. So that, to me, that was the approach that I used to work that seemed pretty effective.
So go ahead, Wally.
One of the things that I've dreamed about is, you know, the use of video and the timing of it, and how do you do it when you're coaching minor hockey, like elite hockey. Even if I was coaching a university team, I might send out a clip, and I've thought of doing this, and I'm trying to encourage coaches to think about it. Send out a positive clip of what your team did of a shift. Probably 15 seconds from prior to the goal being scored, and have the players write down everything they liked about that. It's their own team doing good things. And then sending it back to you. So you know they look at video. It's one assignment, one clip, a feel-good clip. The second task is the other team obviously made some mistakes. What were they? And then have them look at the other team's mistakes. And becoming aware of that, mention that we all make the same mistakes. But right now, we're learning from the other team's mistakes, and we want to reduce our errors. That's sort of a, maybe I'm being too gentle as a coach and afraid of pointing things out, but I don't know what to think about that. Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, when I was over coaching Team Iceland at Worlds, I didn't have a lot of time to do a ton of video. You know, I would have been editing it on my own. There wasn't, you know, you sort of had to go into the YouTube stream and dig it all out. I didn't have a dedicated video person. So I did that for one of the sessions. I just sent like 5 minutes of us playing great hockey. You know, very, very much our identity, the way I asked them to play. And I sent it to them, you know, as a clip. And they all looked at it and they had to reply back to me and say, you know, what are 3 things you thought we did really well, you know, with the puck in this clip. We were really prioritizing our offensive play because we had a lot of time with the puck in the tournament. And it went out to everybody. This was really interesting because then you get what the goalie thinks and what the fourth line player who's maybe not getting as much ice time thinks, and the kid who's on every other shift. And they all sent it back to me, you know, with just like 3 little points. Some of them are like me and wrote novels. Some of them wrote 10 words. But it was a great way, as you said, Wally, they all had to do it, right? So I know they all watched it, right? You could tell some of them, you know, they're under 18. So some of them obviously cheated on the test a little bit and gave the same answers as somebody else. But for the most part, it was really an efficient way to do it, knowing they all had their phones. We all had internet access. You know, they could all watch it on their own time. They could do it together if they wanted. It made it very safe. And we did it again as we got closer to the, or as we got further in the event, talking about what are some things we did well without the puck. So that could have been offensively or defensively, I guess. And it's just interesting. It's an interesting way to learn a lot more about your players, Because I think as coaches, we have a perception of what their hockey IQ is or how they think the game. And I would say of the 20 responses I got, there are probably 4 where it changed a little bit what I thought of the player based on her response, in terms of what she highlighted or how she communicated it. So it was a really great learning experience for me to get to know a little bit more about them and how they think the game, as opposed to just me telling them, watch this, we want to do this, this was really good. So we didn't have any dedicated video sessions at the tournament. We just didn't have the time, nor did I think it was completely necessary. And there were things where I sent them more highlight clips, the 15 seconds, like you said, before the goal, Wally, and, kind of, hey, what did we do great here, and a celebration. But that picking 5 minutes, I think any coach could do that. I could do that with my daughter's U9 games that somebody throws on YouTube. Hey, let's watch these 5 minutes, and half the team says, what did we do great with the puck? And half the team says, what do we do great without the puck? And, doing it virtually where they're not actually in the same room, I find with the girls is quite safe because everybody has to give a response, and the players who usually take over the room or take over the conversation don't have the opportunity to do that. And if the girls think, oh man, I sucked, or that was stupid, or my hair looks funny, or whatever it is, the comments they want to make in the room, they're not making those globally when they just have to answer back to me. So I find it really valuable that way, Wally, and it's quite manageable. Even when I coach the junior team here, I would send clips like that every week, as opposed to having a dedicated video session. I think everyone's got a computer in their hand these days, so it's pretty easy to do. You're on mute, Wally.
When you mentioned you learn more about your players doing that, that to me is the most obvious thing that we don't realize. They're telling you what they think or know or understand. You as a coach appreciate what they know already. So you know how to coach them moving forward versus constantly telling them what to do. You're not doing this. You've got to do this. It changes the learning process from telling and yelling to asking. And I think it's quite simple, and I think very effective. They feel more engaged, appreciated, and you make their wheels turn when you do that. So for any coaches out there who have got video, and in Calgary, every elite team has the use of Instat. The shifts are broken down. They can look at all of their own shifts. They can look at special teams. They can look at all the goals that were scored, for and against. Now, you don't want them to look at everything, but you might prescribe one thing and ask for that feedback from them. If it's elite hockey, I think that's a reasonable expectation. The best ones will do it on their own. They already look at the videos and they learn from them themselves. So I'm curious how many of the players that you have actually watch hockey, let alone watch their own clips. Anybody? Hal, you're a speaker.
Well, I'm coaching U14 boys. No, they don't watch much hockey at all. We've done a little video work with them. I would like to do more, but I pull it. There's a lot of actually interesting clips that come out on Instagram almost every day of great plays, and they're 15 seconds or 20 seconds long, and I'll copy those and send them out into our group chat. And I'll get to the locker room and I'll say, how many of you guys watched it? And 4 hands go up. But I know the other issue that we have is several of the kids, our best players, he has an iPad and his father has it blocked off for things other than what his father thinks is okay for him to have access to. And so he doesn't get any of the stuff. And then if we've got kids on the group chat or set up with iPhones, but if they don't have an iPhone, it doesn't work. And if they have the I don't know, the Android or whatever. So I think it can be extremely valuable, Wally. It comes down to availability, time. I spend a lot of time watching my players, even in practice. It's funny you brought up, keeping your stick on the ice, because that's exactly what I was talking about last night at practice. And with a number of the kids who's always got their sticks up, up here. But I think about a lot of this stuff for these younger kids. So these are 13-year-olds. I've coached all the way up to 20-year-olds. There's a huge difference in self-awareness. There's a huge difference in their understanding of the game and what's going on. So you have to coach, I think, especially on the boys' side, very differently than at an age. And a 13-year-old boy versus a 13-year-old girl, there's like light years of difference in terms of their maturity and their understanding and their willingness to learn. The boys are pretty wild, and their attention spans are awfully short. But over time, they get better. You have to just keep coming back to emphasizing important things individually and collectively. I wish we all had insets. Insets pretty expensive. These teams, Canadian teams, all pay for that. It's like $6,000 or $7,000, I think, for the season.
Well, girls hockey Calgary at the elite level, they've done it. They've got into this Russian program.
Wow.
The coaches are really good at using it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I think it's a feature that really opens up learning. And I know I've talked to parents who have looked at their kids in stats. So there's conversations I have at the rink, watching practices and games with parents have taken a different level because they're looking at the games and breakdowns of the games themselves and asking real objective questions about it, sharing really valid insights about what they see.
Who's got access to it? Do the parents all have access to?
They do, because of their, the team has access to it. So it's available. The team includes the parents and players and coaching staffs.
I might try that next year if I'm coaching older kids, because I think I can go way back with a kid I had in high school, and he just he played about half speed all the time, and he insisted he was going full speed. And we did manage to pull video and show him shift after shift, but he still insisted that we were wrong. So it turns out we weren't wrong. He didn't want to believe it, even when you showed it.
The most important stat on the in-stat shift is shift lengths.
Yep.
And it monitors shift lengths. And one of the problems is making sure there's a contrast in color of your jersey number to your jersey, because I know one of our teams had to change all their numbers, putting white numbers on instead of black numbers on the jerseys, because the jerseys weren't very dark, were too dark. But the one of my coaches, Jordan, who's on this session a lot, he's taken that shift length and he has the volleyball flip chart. You know how they score keep in volleyball on the bench?
Yeah.
And when the defense come off, the first one comes off the ice from a pairing. they flip the chart. And when the forward comes off after a shift, they flip the chart. And you should have 30 flip charts in each period for 45-second shifts. And he's been able to accomplish that, the pace of their play, and that statistic, and them checking their own statistics. But he's been able to connect the conscious awareness, like you mentioned, Peter, using that volleyball thing. While they come off the ice, the first person flips it. And he's had to catch him a couple of times for flipping it twice. But it's just the idea that coaches, they want to learn and get better, and even parents do, and players do too. They really do. It's just a matter of doing it in a way that motivates and not, impinges their progress and hinders their progress. But I'm really into this big time, the habit thing, because of the book. I'm talking sticks on the ice and turning your back on the play. And Kim, you've mentioned how, simple that is. And we're talking to one another. Yeah, it's simple because you're aware of it. You look at the play and you see when their sticks are off the ice. Well, average coaches don't.
Right.
They're so busy looking at the game. They're not looking at the player that turns their back on the ice. It takes years of experience to see things happen as they happen, to address them or not address them. The art of coaching is not to address them directly, but maybe indirectly, about what can we do better. So, Peter, go ahead. Your hand's up.
Yeah, just what you just said there about the awareness piece and the teaching part of that too. One thing I always found interesting too is, especially when you're coaching, Division II level, your assistant coaches are typically younger guys who played the sport. And I had this with one of my defensive coaches. He was running the D for us, and I would always ask him, maybe after a play or after a period or after a rush, tell me what your defenders were doing. Tell me what your D-men were doing. And he'd kind of look at me. Well, they came up with the play. I know, but tell me what they were doing. And then I have conversations with them. To your point, you can't be a spectator. If you're on the bench as the assistant coach, you can't be a spectator. You have to watch and see what are your defenders doing as that play is going on. So once they get off the ice, we can talk about if it was good, bad, or indifferent, what exactly happened. So mentoring those assistant coaches, I think, is important too, so that they're not just, again, spectating from the bench, just like parents are spectating from the stands.
Kim.
I think it's also, language is so powerful, and especially when it comes to habits, there's certain things that, if it's a non-negotiable or something that you really prioritize as a coach, then you should have a language about it that your players understand, if that sticks on the ice or sticks down or whatever that is. And so it can be constantly communicated to them more easily by everyone. I know for us at U9, we don't have center, left wing, or right wing. We went to full ice about a month ago. We don't even have Ds. We have kind of these other terms, but we have concepts like, Wally, I stole the train tracks idea last year, which has been transformational. We talk about having a player in the fast lane. We talk about having a hinge, a hunter, a backpack. These are all terms that we use. And so you can, to your point, Peter, say to an assistant coach, hey, we didn't have anybody in the train tracks that time in front of our net, or we need to get someone in the fast lane. And it's amazing because the players can then self-correct as well when you have this shared vocabulary that's consistent with everybody. So, we're not talking about on the breakout getting your butt on the boards and your stick in the middle. We're saying we need somebody in the fast lane. You might not get the puck, but we need someone out there. That's what we call the lane out by the boards on both sides. And so I think those are really kind of powerful ways to have those shared words. And then you can be really consistent and everybody can use the same terminology. And then we're explaining things the same way. And then that sinks in even greater with the players. And I use that same terminology, quite frankly, when I coach the national team with Iceland. Like, we still talk about having a backpack player. We talk about having hunters. We talk about hinge and train tracks. It's the same. And so I can imagine if I was actually coaching all the levels in between, within one organization, which I guess I do in Leaside. I mean, those terms can be really, really valuable and they can sustain over time. And then the conceptual side of hockey is ingrained in everybody, irrespective of what systems a coach chooses or what skills a skills coach does. I would say that's been the biggest thing for me, is having those terms and seeing these 7 and 8-year-old kids be able to, not just share them with me, but go to their parents and say, oh, like, what were you doing there? Oh, well, I have to be in the train tracks and Sally was in the fast lane. And it sounds like we're speaking some kind of hidden language compared to the other teams, but it really resonates versus I'm the left winger and I need to do this. And I don't know, it really has caught on well with the younger players to have those terms. And it was neat to see, to be able to use those same terms on the national team level and have them embrace it as well.
Thanks very much, Kim, for that. That's outstanding. You articulated pretty well, kid.
I've only had 7 concussions, Wally, so there's still some. The funny thing is, though, talking about these habits, I do have to say, watching my kids stand there, I had my 2 hands on my stick and my stick up by my waist an awful lot when I played, and I turned out okay. So it's funny because I coach like that. I'm always holding my stick up high. So I go, okay, my daughter's been on the ice with me quite a few hours. So a lot of her isms on the ice are actually very similar to what I do. So I'm pointing the finger at myself, I guess, in terms of her habits. But, at least she's got better edges than me, Wally. Not that that's hard to do. So at least we've checked that box.
Well, listen, I wanted to share last night with you. I'm working with a U13 coach who played in the NCAA and coached in the NCAA. And he's also the community director of a large association, volunteering to coach a U13 elite team with his daughter on it, who happens to be very gifted. But he's coaching at a very high level. Like, he hasn't been able to regress the drills to suit the needs of the players, but it's all great stuff, but maybe the wrong stuff at that time for the kids. But he did something I thought that was exceptional yesterday. He did a drill which was receiving a pass and instant shooting without handling the puck. And he demonstrated that by having his hand locked on his hip and the stick too close to the body. He didn't have the hands away from the body. He talked about catching and shooting, not handling it. And then I was thinking, gee, I don't like them standing still, because when they're playing a game, F3's got to get open in that slot to receive the puck and shoot it. And he demonstrated movement with the hands. And I interrupted and I said, would you do that again? Because players, you're going to do the drill stationary. You're going to get a pass from a coach in the corner, catch it and release it quickly with your hands away from the body. But in the game, you're not standing still. You're moving fluidly. And he demonstrated the fluid movement. And at one end, that's what they did. And it was incredible. The power and accuracy of their shots were incredible. And that was a wake-up moment for me of learning and interrupting as a mentor and mentioning the movement factor, because one of the favorite drills out here, and Hal, you might try this. It's the best drill by the U15 coach here that we have to do at U13, because all three, or F3, the low forward, isn't open and moving to the open spots. They just stand still and are easy to cover. So the game is below the ringette line, one zone only, 3 forwards against 2D. Just play. And there's going to be a different F3. The puck's going to be here. You've got to outwork them, outbattle them. I just typed my summary note from last night's practice to send to a coach who they weren't intense enough at regaining possession. They had numbers, but they didn't use them. And F3, I discovered, well, the 2 players were too skilled. The 3rd player was too nervous to even do anything when they got the puck. They just got rid of it. So there were so many things going on, creating combinations who could do that drill well together. But it was, boy, I kid you not, I'm learning more doing this than the players are, or the coaches are trying to teach it. So, Hal, you got anything else to add to any of these habit things?
Well, I mean, as I talk to our players, this game has a lot of common reoccurring situations. And one of the things we've been working on a lot on is give and go rather than, give and stand. And we're at U13 or U14. So we only have about 3 weeks left at the most. And we started working on body checking. And because we don't body check at this level, there's body contact, but there's not body checking. And so we've been doing that in practice. But there's so much to teach them and so little time. Our issue with F3 is that the longer the puck's in the zone, the deeper the F3 gets. They don't have patience to stand out there in that soft spot and wait and or transition to a defensive posture when we lose control of the puck. The other issue we've had, and I've got a couple drills I've been working on that, is when we get control of the puck in the defensive zone, and it rotates from one side to the other, that weak side wing who's out in front kind of wanders over to the other side rather than hurrying over there. And if the defenseman has to make the pass and he's not there, the pass goes to the blue line, and that's bad. A lot of it's just repetition. You got to spend the time in practice and just go through it, stop them, correct them, or tell them how important it is for them to do this. We did an interesting thing the other night, shootout. The kids, they love to do shootouts, and they rarely score. And I saw some video on Instagram of some of the best, Patrick Kane and I can't remember who the other guy was, and how they come in, literally, they come in off the wall, and they take, a diagonal course into the net, which of course makes so much sense, right? Because you want to get the goalie to move. If you go straight in, your odds of scoring aren't real good. And if you come in from the left side or the right side and come across, and the other thing, because we did a shootout thing after a game against a team the other night, and all the kids went straight in at the goalie. They go straight at the goalie, and then nobody scores. We put them on the side, or told them to go in on the side and move the goalie, and don't go right to the goalie. Go to a spot, 5 feet outside the crease, and find an opening. And all of a sudden, 7 out of 10 attempts were going in the net. And so apparently, last night I had to designate 5 players for shootout for the playoffs, which don't even start till next week. So if we get into a shootout situation after overtime, we should be pretty good at it because we now know how to do it. So there's just so many things that young players don't get, and I think our job is to show it to them and let them try it. And some of them are going to take it now, and some of them it might be a year or two before they get it. But it's all good stuff, you guys. Just really great. I love this.
Kim, go ahead.
Well, I love it, Hal. I was actually just talking to one of my assistants last night with my daughter's team, and we've had, so these are U9, 7 and 8-year-olds. We've had 36 practices, and they're all 2 hours long, which is 2 teams on the ice together with 8 coaches, many of whom played college hockey or pro. So it's like sometimes we have 10 coaches on the ice. It's pretty awesome. These kids have had a ton of ice time. And I remember saying to my coach last night, I was like, I feel like in U9, like we need 2 seasons. There's so much to teach and they need so much repetition. And so it's been really cool. This is now my 2nd year coaching this age, to figure out what really are the priorities, like not just to bring team success, individual success, correct development. I came from coaching junior and Team Ontario and all of these, and you always write down like neutral zone faceoffs in the practice plan. You just never get to them, but they're there lurking in the background. At this age, we're not doing any of that stuff, right? And you're watching the games and you're just looking for skill sets you want these players to have, knowing they're just at the beginning of their hockey journey. So it's been really amazing to me just to go back to the bottom of the mountain, or I might argue the top of the mountain. This might be the hardest age to coach, in terms of keeping your message consistent and not getting, as we all do as coaches, oh man, our power play was bad yesterday, so now we got to do the power play, or oh man, like this other team's got this kind of penalty kill, so now we got to adjust. I mean, we're not adjusting at U9 to anybody. I don't even know who's on the other teams. So it's a really refreshing way to coach, but it also has changed my mindset because I work with teams as their skills coach from U11 all the way up to the national team level. And now I'm coaching those older age groups and levels differently because of my experience at U9, because I'm seeing a different set of priorities with these young kids. And then when I go and observe these older age groups, I'm seeing some of those fundamental things I'm working with U9s aren't there. And we're trying to pile upon, I always joke, once upon a time I ran a camp for adult women, kind of learning to play, where some of them were playing, recreational hockey. And they came to the camp. I'm like, hey, what do you guys want to work on? And they're like, we want to work on power play. I'm like, you can't pass. So like, you can't do the power play until you can pass. And I see those same patterns. Obviously with U9, we don't have a power play. But I see that even with the U15, U18 teams I work with. Sometimes as coaches, we watch the NHL, we watch the PWHL. We get caught up in like the way we think hockey should look. And we forget about these fundamentals. And maybe we think it's too late, or maybe we think we don't have the skill set to reinforce, the basics of passing or the basics of catch and release, like Wally said. I mean, I've done that drill that you described from last night, or a version of it, with every single team I've worked with this year, as well as my daughter's team. So I guess it's just a call to action that, especially as we go into playoffs and we think strategic, and we've got to dial in these details. It goes back to what we said at the beginning. The habits are the most important thing. And if we don't fix them and reinforce them at U9, U11, U13, then we get to U15 and 18, we want to fix the power play, and we realize they can't receive a backhand pass. Right. So we're a little bit limited. But anyways, I got to run, guys, because I have a whole day of...
Thanks for coming on, Kim. Really appreciate you anytime.
Yeah, I know, Wally. It's always in my calendar, and I just have to figure out how to clone myself, and then I'd be here every week because it's always so valuable. So it's great to see everybody, and have a great weekend.
Okay, take care, Kim. Hal, go ahead.
Well, I sent Kim and Peter, I sent you the video I did last month. Promised to do it on practice, how to maximize practice time, because it's interesting that Kim says they have 2 hours of practice. We get 1 hour, and it's typically we only get half the sheet, which to me is horrible. I don't mind doing it occasionally, but only occasionally. Now we're getting full hours, and we get so much done. Yesterday we got on 15 minutes early, and we just had a wonderful practice. We covered so many different things. But having good assistant coaches is so critical, and then splitting the practice up the way we do it, at least, with the soft skills, hard skills, game skills, and then when we're doing hard skills, which is the skating fundamentals and stick handling fundamentals, at the same time the goalies are working with a couple coaches on their work, and they get 20 minutes of that in a practice. That's a lot for goaltenders in a practice. And then we started using, after Dave King was on, was that last week? We tried they were doing 11 on 11. He said, we don't have that many players, but we split the team in half and we play full ice right at the beginning for about 10 minutes or so. And they love it. They absolutely love it. And I looked at one of my assistant coaches last night. I guess actually was the goalie coach that was there last night. He go, look at these kids. I mean, they're screaming and yelling and they're having so much fun. This is why they come to the rink. This is what they want to do. But what Kim was talking about is something I've known for a long, long time, is whatever your skill level of your team is dictates your priorities as a coach for the season. And if you have a low-skilled team, power play is probably the last thing you want to work on, because it's the least valuable use of your time. You got to work on other things first, and it's passing and it's skating and it's just overall structure will help you be successful as a team. Because again, if we look at a hockey player I'm looking at them every day, and one just turned 13 today, and versus a kid who's 18, who's got 5 years of habit building. It's pretty tough to change those habits when these kids get older. It's a lot easier, as I've been coaching these younger kids, is to help them create new habits, because the old habits aren't as ingrained in them yet. And so, I found coaching high school kids that were sort of mostly B-level players, but we were in a league that just making them better skaters made the team better all along. We got better outcomes out of it. But you got to really, really look at every player in the team and say, all right, what can I do for this player to help him or her be a little bit better next week and the week after and the week after? And it's going to be different than the player over here who already has that skill set. And that's why having really good assistant coaches really, really matters. So we split up a lot, and I run D. I have a really good assistant coach at a little bit of NCAA also. We both had a cup of coffee in the NCAAs, and he's a lot younger than I am, so he's still kind of half coach, half player. But he does a great job with the forwards, and so it's a collective effort for sure. But anyways, that's all I have for today. You guys are awesome. Peter, I don't know if I'd sent you that video or not a few weeks ago, but it's sort of it's a common sense kind of deal.
Yeah, no, I appreciate everything that you do send there. And first off, I'm jealous about the 2 hours of practice is Can't fathom that. And then even yours with an hour, because the way it works here is you have an hour practice, 10 minutes of which is Zamboni time that the rink charges you for. So you actually only get a full 50 minutes.
Oh my.
That's with two teams. So you're going half ice with that. So prioritizing, yeah.
Where are you?
Connecticut.
In Connecticut. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So prioritize, and I don't know if it's the same at every rink, but at least the two rinks that this organization I work with skate out of do the same thing. So,
I've always thought I would rather have an hour and a half and have one less session a week, or something like that, because you spend time sort of warming up and cooling down, and you've got so many things to do that if I could do more in one session and not have another session, or have a video session, or have an off ice session, but they're reluctant to do it. And I had to get up at 5 this morning and go over to the rink and watch. The high school coach runs a skills session for youth teams that he gets paid to do. They call them skills sessions. They're not. They're just, he just runs flow drills. But only 8 of our players showed up because it snowed. It actually snowed, guys. We had like 4 inches of snow. We've only had 2 inches all winter until last night.
yeah, well, I don't know if you were on when I was talking to Wally about that. We got our first storm. We got a foot on Tuesday.
Wow.
So,
Well,
it'll be here till the middle of March. So, not gonna be a while before we can get some things done outside. But with that limited amount of ice that we get, speaks to your point about the importance of the priority. I was talking with a Squirt B coach, and he was lamenting how his players struggle to stop. But so then the question is, so why are you working on breakouts? Why are you doing that? I said, did you ever do the drill? You know the drill, you drop a puck on each dot and you split your team in half and you put them on the outside of the circle and you say go, and the goal is to cover the puck in snow so you can't see it anymore. So you've got, let's say you have 18 kids, you've got 9 on one circle, 9 on the other. So they're doing this, they're coming, stopping at the puck, covering it with snow, coming back and forth until you can't see it anymore. And you have them do it with your right foot, and then you have them do it with your left foot, till you can't see any more of the black of the puck. Get enough snow on there, and the first team that covers the puck wins. The other ones that we do is called a snow cone drill, where you stagger the cones, where you skate, you snow this cone on your left, go up to this one, stagger cone on your right, back and forth. Then there's pucks up on top that they do get, come down, they get a shot on the goalie. So it keeps it interesting for them. But those are 2 great ways to teach kids how to stop with a little bit of fun involved.
Yeah,
and
I like it.
And why are you working on breakouts and these flow drills and that when they can't stop and start? It's just it's something, it's a learning curve that I'm trying to work with on the teams. You can't lament that your players can't do something if you're not actually working on that skill that you're lamenting.
No, I agree. I mean, I watch some of our mites, our younger players, and even some of the squirts in our rink when I'm over there. And it's, first of all, some of their sticks are way too long. And then they're trying to run drills where the kids don't have the skating skills to actually do the drills, and they're leaning on the stick, and they have no stick skills. And it's parents that are doing the coaching, and they've got the sheet from USA Hockey that shows the drill and the whole thing, but they're not, the kids can't do the drills really. I mean, I'm astounded at how good kids actually get with as little technical training that they receive over the years. And
sure, and they struggle with modifying those drills so that the kids could do them.
Right.
Like the concept of the drill is good, but how do I modify that so that my team can actually perform somewhat of that task that it's trying to accomplish?
So I always try to go at the beginning of the season right back to the basic fundamentals. And as I see that they can do stuff, then I layer more difficulty on it, and I layer more things on top of it, and we start adding pucks, and we start doing this. We had a great coach, Bob O'Connor, that died a few years ago. He was a Rhode Island guy. He was around all our Olympic teams, but he coached over in Edina, Minnesota. And he was the JV coach for a bunch of years. And when he started at the beginning of the season, he just assumed they didn't know how to skate. And then they did, the first month, they just did a lot of power skating, half their practices. And it was, over the years he did that, you could spot one of their players anywhere in the state of Minnesota just by the way they skated. They had a very, I don't know how he taught it, but you could tell an Edina kid anywhere. And I'm really big on the skating side, because if you can't skate well, again, last night, and you'll see this in that video I sent you, that drill called Russian chops, which is a backwards, your feet go, or you do it like this and put them down, and then like this and put it down. Our kids couldn't do that at the beginning of the season. It's an outside edge drill going backwards. And they can all do it now. I mean, it took about a month, but they can all do it. And they really like the drill now. But I've got a couple that still struggle. I got kids that struggle on being on one foot. And these are, kids that are moving into Bantams. And because, so last night, I think we practiced early, 5 to 6, and half the kids were playing lacrosse 30 minutes later.
Yeah. Do you think that like that one individual you're talking about, do you think does that go back to mites and the learn to skate, the learn to play, and just really hammering it there? Because that was one thing I noticed. I know this goes back quite a while ago when my son was a mite, which was 24 years ago, 5 years ago. No, I'm sorry. 30.
Yeah.
32 years ago. 32 years ago. To make the Mite A team, you had to be able to stop both ways. If you couldn't stop both ways, you were just on the Mite B team. So the teams were pretty similar, but you had that piece there. And here I've got a Squirt B coach telling me my guys can't stop both. My guys can't stop. My girls can't stop. So we've got some work to do because I'm mentoring this program. So there's work to do at the most basic levels of teaching the most simplest thing in hockey is your ability to bend your knees and stop both ways.
Well, I've got the videos that I did for USA Hockey. They're on YouTube and are on the Minnesota Hockey website on, teaching skating. And they're 20 minutes long, and they are just skating. One's skating, the one's in advanced skating. It doesn't go down to mites, but there's no reason it couldn't, or certainly go down to squirts for sure. And our problem in our program is our kids don't skate very well. And so the solution is they want to, at Bantams, they want to merge with another community next door so we have more players. They go, well, why don't we just teach the kids we have how to skate?
Yeah.
And I ran a skating school for about 8 years, because when my son didn't play mite hockey, he started at Squirts, and he was a C-level kid to start with. And so I started taking him and a couple of his teammates over to the rink before school, and I cut a deal with the rink, so it was $5 a kid or something like that. And all of a sudden I had 20 kids. And eventually I had to expand the thing. And I got up to where I had over 100 kids coming 3 nights a week in the spring and the fall in staggered sessions. And, no nets, no pucks, just fundamental skating. So those are in those videos.
Okay.
And there's like 20 different drills. And the videos are designed for coaches who don't know how to teach skating.
How do I find those exactly?
I will send you links because I have your email. I'll send you the links for them. And what are we doing last night? I mean, this is an A team. we're not bad. We have AA in Minnesota, but just the great big programs have those. We're still doing inside edges, backwards, swizzles. We're doing these Russian chops. We're still, last night, skating on the circles, crossovers on the circles. And,
with me, I got to shut my stove off quick.
Yep.
I don't want to end the conversation, though.
But it's all about, like last night, we were working on, on crossovers on the circles. And so we do it for a while, and then I want them to do everything slow, because if they do it slow, they can't cheat.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And then I say, now I want you to go faster, but I don't want your feet to go faster. They look at me and go, you're doing this, you're doing this. I don't want to see this. I want you to keep doing this, but I want you to go faster. And they go, well, how do we do that? I said, bend your knees more.
Yeah, create power, right?
Yeah, and so they do. And now all of a sudden, they're really zooming around, and their feet are still doing this, right? Not the hop around. And we got done. I said, well, what do you think? Coach, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's so great, and that's right. Like the players that have that type of a habit, you'll see that in the third period, because your opponent skating the other way that you're talking is going to be so gassed because they've just been like the Energizer Bunny with their feet for 2 periods are gassed the last half of that third period.
Well, the younger kids and smaller kids move their feet quicker to keep up, but at a certain point, that's as fast as they're ever going to go.
Right.
Right. Even if they grow and they continue to do that, that's as fast as they're ever going to go, because they're never getting, they're never loading. They're not taking advantage of the power. I use the rubber band example. If you just throw it, you can't throw it very far. But if you stretch it and let it go, it goes a long ways. Well, that's what you're doing with your muscles in your legs. They kind of get that analogy. But this is the stuff. We're going to run a program this spring, 3 nights a week in May, and 3 nights a week in the fall. 45-minute sessions. That fit perfectly with your ice time. And
it would.
And small groups. 6 to 8 kids in one zone, 6 to 8 kids in the other zone, 6 to 8 kids in the middle zone, all with an instructor giving feedback. So, and just doing these fundamental, kind of boring drills. But the kids that are, playing B hockey will be competing for A hockey that next winter, because they just skate that much better. And
let me ask you this, Hal. I know it's different when you're coaching, like at your AA level. Do you have that would be similar to what we have here in Connecticut, the town youth hockey? Like, town youth hockey is not AAA. Like, it's open to anybody, and the kids it's really, for the most part, recreational hockey players that want to get better. When you have your tryouts, if you were on the top team last year, do you have to make that team again this year, or are you on that team?
No, you have to make it again. But so here, let me tell you how we used to be in Minnesota. The better programs, we would have travel teams. We called them travel. So we'd have, in those days, it was A teams, B teams.
Right.
Okay. And then C League was house league. You just played against teams from your community. Well, in any organization, the people that end up on the board are not the parents of the top players. They're the parents of the C kids, or the bubble kids. And so they outnumber them. So they go, well, this isn't fair. So everybody gets the same opportunities. Everybody gets the jerseys. Everybody gets to go buy a bag to put their jersey in with their number on it and all the bullshit. They all get to go to the same tournament, go to tournaments and all this stuff, which is also put a big crimp on our ice time here in Minnesota. Well, especially because of all the girls hockey now. So there's a lot more demand for ice. And I'm not making any judgments there. It's just, that's the reality of it, right? So right now in our organization, so the big programs have AA teams and then you have single A teams, and we have B1, B2, C, but we will have tryouts, and all the Bantam kids will show up, or whatever level you're at. They all show up for the initial tryouts, and we cut them down, and we start pretty quickly after 2 or 3 sessions having an upper pool and a lower pool. So if you're in the upper pool, you're either going to be on the top team or you're going to be on the next team. Okay. And then if you're on the lower pool, you can be either on that team or you can be down a team from there. Okay. So that's how we do it here. Every association, depending on the size, I mean, we've got Minnetonka, Wayzata, Edina, I mean, they have 1,000 kids in their programs. They got 150 kids at every level. We've got 60. So, everybody does it slightly different. So I coached the Wayzata program for a bunch of years, and we would have anywhere from 130 to 160 kids eligible for Bantam hockey. But it's 25 kids were in the A pool, okay, so after 3 days. Well, if we went back and looked go back 5 years, it's the same kids.
Yeah.
They don't all make the A team, but there's some kids leave, they get better, some kids get better, but it's the same group all the time, but parents don't want to believe that. And, but that's the reality of it. And, so I hope that kind of answers your question. The other thing that I find is so curious is that for us at the C level, which would be the sort of the rec level that you're talking about, the parents want the same thing that the top teams have in terms of resources, but the players don't. Right? I mean, they don't want to come to practice, and one of the dads has to coach it, and they don't know what to do. And I've suggested to our program is because of our ice time shortage. I said, we have restrictions like at the squirt level, which would be what is that? U12, right? Yeah.
That for us, that's Pee Wee's U12. Squirt is U10.
Okay. He said, at that level, if you're a C team, please go play 75 games, but play them somewhere else. Go to 6 tournaments and schedule a lot of games away if you can, and use less ice here because the kids don't show up at practice, and so you're burning $300 worth of ice time, and there's 8 kids out there with a coach that isn't really helping them get better. They won't do that.
Do you have a number that you pick for your rosters on those teams?
On which all of our teams?
Yeah, So right, do you go with 4 lines, 4 sets of D, 2 goalies, or are there some teams with a dozen kids, 13 kids?
Well, our program's a little different because we're short on numbers, but for the bigger programs, we always had 17 kids on the roster. You couldn't have less. Okay.
Right.
Which included 2 goalies. So it's 15 skaters and 2 goalies. We have a goalie shortage. Everybody's got a goalie shortage around the metro area here. Our Bantam A team doesn't have a goalie.
Wow. They
have to borrow a goalie for every game from another team somewhere in the metro area. They've used mine a couple. I have 2. My Pee Wee's is 14 and under, U14. So they're 12 and 13-year-olds. At least here they are. We're not on USA Hockey. We have a little different deal. We have a June cutoff. We don't use USA Hockey birth years.
Okay.
We use it by grade level, I guess, or something.
Yeah,
But
what I think is the way it used to be way back in the day. That's how it used to be.
yeah, and so we just do. We have a big problem, and I wrote an article about this a long time ago. How cold, dry hands, how short is your bench? And but now that the teams are, last two teams I've had, well, I had 20 last year. That was Bantam B1, and we should have 2 or 3 of those kids should have been on the A team, and a couple of them should have been on C teams. But that was, I don't know why they did that, but it was too many. Several were hurt at the beginning of the season. I didn't even see them till the middle of the season. This year I've got 15 skaters, but we don't have them all very often because they're sick or we've had a couple injuries, and I find it very challenging to run a really good practice with only 2 lines. I mean, you burn them up pretty fast, right?
Yeah. In that sense, for us, in that sense, it's good that we have half ice because you couldn't do full ice practices with those kids. The law of diminishing returns would kick in after 15 minutes.
And so one of my thoughts is if for next year is if depending on what level I'm at, especially if I'm at the Bantam level, if I coach the A team, I want every 2 weeks, I want to have a joint practice with the B team. Okay, that doesn't mean we go here and they go there. It means we all get together and we practice together, or we split up and we do the same things at each end, but we mix the kids up a little bit. And it has to be for more than an hour. We need an hour and a half to do that kind of thing. Part of that is to mentor coaches on how to run a really efficient practice. And there's just things you can do. I mean, I had my son out east there. I think it was the Princeton assistant coaches were running a camp in the summer. And I don't know, God, they had like 40 kids on the ice. My son was skating. And he was exhausted at the end. I mean, they had so much going on the ice for an hour and a half. And they were all just dripping wet. And I'm going, yeah, I mean, and they got a lot out of it. So everybody's got a different journey through this whole thing.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. So it for me, it's, I can't wonder. I mean, I've been doing this for 50 some years. And kind of going, why do I keep doing this? And then it's like, yeah, but I really enjoy really being with the kids on the ice. The locker room, not so much anymore because they scream and yell at each other. The noise is unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're so verbal, these kids are. But on the ice and working with, and as you work with you got a team, and 2/3 of them are paying attention, and there's 1/3 are never going to pay attention to you. And so you just kind of, work with the kids that want to get better and that are paying attention. That doesn't mean you ignore the other ones, but some kids are way more receptive to coaching. We've got one little kid who's a senior. I watched this skills thing this morning. His dad is always around, and he's pretty small, and he's, he says, well, what do you, what can you help my son with? And I said, I'll tell you frankly, he's resistant to coaching. And he goes, really? I go, as soon as we talk to him, his eyes go down and he gets a really sour look on his face. And then he just goes back and does what he wants to do. And his dad doesn't know this, but we've had to bench him during practice. We take him out of games because he's not doing what he needs to be doing. Now he's gotten better through the season. But some players, I had a player a long time ago, Bantam. I ran into his father yesterday over at the club. Now this player currently plays for the New York Rangers. This is his dad, and I coached him in Pee Wee's Bantams and then in the high school fall elite league when he was in high school. And he was the most stubborn. I was like, he went to play at University of Minnesota, and the coach there, Don Lucia, and he calls me up and he goes, "So what can you tell me now?" Coach Lucia's son was on this Bantam team too. He says, "What can you tell me about him?" I said, "Good luck." And don't use him on the penalty kill because he won't block shots and he won't play the position. All he wants to get is a breakaway. And but the kid, when he was a Bantam, was 6'1". Now he's 6'6".
Yeah.
Right, or 6'5" or 6'6", and the game suits him a lot better. But anyways, just stubborn, and he'd always go like this. "Oh yeah, coach, yeah." But I knew inside he was going, "No way, am I ever going to do that?"
Yeah.
By the time a kid's in high school, at least here in Minnesota, it's got to be the same everywhere else. When I was coaching the Elite League, we took a break. Phil Housley, who played for the Buffalo Sabres a long time.
Sure.
Yeah, he's from here, and he was helping me out because it was during the player strike or the lockout or something in 2004, 3 or 4, or whenever that was. And we took a little break, and I asked the kids, I go, how many coaches have you guys had in your life, your hockey career so far? Oh, that took a little thinking, right? I think the number's close to 80. I mean, if summer coaches, skills coaches, high school coaches, Bantam coaches, there's 2 or 3 every, you're probably getting exposed to 8 to 10 different coaches every year for 10 years. Now, if they start skating at 4, I mean, it's like, that's a lot of coaching. And I think I've come to the conclusion that players know really quickly if the coach has any idea what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, and if they come to the conclusion the coach is not, they'll play the game, the coach-player game, but they're not paying any damn attention.
Yeah, I've heard that players saying, "Wow, that guy's a real coach."
Yeah,
right off the bat, that tells you that they've already dismissed somebody or however many.
Yeah, and so I get, I was talking to one of my players the other day before a game, and I go, "Are you having fun?" And he goes, "Yeah, this is really fun." I go, "Well, that's cool." And I said, "You should be having fun." He says, "This is the first team I've ever had a good time on."
That's a shame. It's a good compliment, but it's also a shame.
Yeah, and I've heard this before. Bantam's parents would say our son was going to quit after Pee Wee's. Thank you.
I've got to interrupt, guys. I've had my hand up, and I could have interrupted 10 times on different topics because you guys are amazing in getting cross section of things. When we talk, we know what we're doing. You know what you're doing. The coaches I'm working with are learning to do it, and they're open to it. But mentorship is sort of a massage process. Right now, I have the belief, Hal, that don't bother teaching or coaching. Average coaches, learning, parents, don't try to teach.
Right.
Make sure their stick lengths are right. And they get with a proper stick length and grip. They got knee grip. They can skate and turn and stop both ways.
Yep.
Let them play small area games. Go. Have fun. And they'll get better just by playing games and having fun without any interference. Now, if you do know something and have something to offer, you can. But you can also overcoach and distance yourself from players who are independent thinkers that will go on. That's fine. But I'm just saying, how do you get us to influence coaches to make a bigger difference than they are making right now? And I'm just saying, play small area games, variations of games, and let it go from there. I mean, working on the power play this time of the year and knowing what the other team's doing and how you're going to defend it at U13. This is happening. This is a reality, but it's elite hockey and the score clock matters.
Yep.
I'm saying, as a general statement, Hal, everything you're doing, Peter, and you've done it too from the youngest stages, is right. I'm advocating just playing small area games, and I'm still trying to teach fundamental tactical skills, not forward crossovers, not forward stride. I'm teaching the evasive tight turn. I'm teaching puck protection. And these drills are the same that I did with the national team. And I can do them. I'm trying to teach other coaches to do them and let them play and make decisions while they play with the skills they have. And right now, there's absolutely the most missing link of a tactical skill. And every one of your teams you're coaching and working with is an evasive tight turn. Whether it's retrieval on breakout and you lose the checker and create time and space, that's, for me, the most important skill, because they may wheel and telegraph a breakout, but if they aren't able to create space and evade the checker, and then the teammates see what's happening and know where to go, they're allowed to think and figure it out based on the situation. I think that this is where the teaching needs to go now. It's more tactical skating than fundamental skating. So we began earlier about breakaway skating and two hands on the stick. And Kim mentioned looking at the video. Well, if you can't breakaway skate, that's an extreme advantage to playing the game. And that means one hand on the stick so you can get deeper with your knees and push the puck ahead. So to me, those are fundamental things that I'd like to see done at the U11 and U13 levels. And they're going to play games to win. We can't stop that. And we can't influence coaches at those highly competitive levels. So they'll do what they want to do.
Yeah, they will. We do a lot of small area games, but my challenge with them is you've got to keep changing them, but also is getting them to, getting them to adhere to whatever the guardrails are, whether it's a 3-second pass rule, whether it's a one-timer shoot, whether it's coach pass where they have to regroup.
Yeah.
But then they slow down. Okay. But what it has taught these kids is how to play on the wall, how to play in the corners, how to use their body to puck protect. They're just doing that because it's competitive, because the losing team gets to do a little extra skate just before we move on. So that stuff you can't teach. You just create the environment for them to learn it by just doing it. Now, this morning I was watching 3-on-1s in zone because that's what the high school coach was doing, and there was nothing of value, in my opinion, happening, and which is too bad. And USA Hockey, and I don't know about Canada, but we're always looking for that magic bullet on how to teach kids. So it became small area games, just do small area games. Well, so you can't teach the center to support the wing down low in the D zone playing small area games. I mean, there's things you have to teach them in terms of structure, that they can take all these skills that they learn, whether it's in, skating instruction, passing and stuff. At the beginning of the season, our kids couldn't catch a pass, or they didn't want to catch it in some cases. Now they can all do it. Now they can all make pretty darn good passes. And if it's a pass that they think is nicknamed the muffin, or if they shoot a muffin puck, they tease each other about it now. The coach doesn't have to say a word about it. But this is a very dynamic learning environment, I think, for players. And coaches that are observant and engaged in practice, not just standing passively and watching them do the drill. You know, I think you were a teacher, Wally. The
Yes.
pedagogy is, tell, show, observe, and correct.
Yeah.
Got to do some of that.
Oh,
Not a lot of it, but you got to do some of it.
keep in mind, I had 6 years of education becoming a teacher, and then 25 years of teaching while I was coaching and coaching at school sports. So
Yeah.
I'm wearing a mentorship hat, and we're talking about the coaches that are out there, and I can't be critical of them at all. They're given their time,
Yep.
and right now they're listening. They're receptive to anything I have to say. And last night was probably my best evening of mentorship, because I watched them do. And tell me, Hal and Peter, have you ever done a double regroup attack drill with the teams you've coached?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
common.
Okay, well, I watched a U18 team do a deliberate regroup,
Mhm.
double regroup. In fact, it was 4 regroups before attacking 3-on-0. And what happened, it was deliberate. They always went D to D and hit the winger or the center,
Okay.
and they went the same direction. And they halfway through, kudos to them, they went the other direction.
Mhm.
But there's no thinking. So
We'll throw a forechecker in there.
Yeah, let me continue, because
Yep.
that's what I asked them to do.
Oh, okay.
I didn't ask them because they were too sensitive to the feedback. You're reading, you're mentoring them. It's not like the player, you can't tell them.
Yep.
And so I mentioned to the assistant coach, if you went in there and took away the D to D, they might move it up. You can provide resistance. And I left it at that. U18 AA. They're good players. Last night, I had U13 AA. They did a double regroup. It was random, and all 3 coaches were in the neutral zone getting in the way. And those players were going double D to D, making tight turns, changing lanes. It was the best drill I've seen all year at U13. Randomization, free thinking, their own decision making, as opposed to that D to D pass sequence. So the line between deliberate practice of tactics and team play, and then making decisions within the game, requires you as coaches to provide decision-making opportunity by putting in 1 checker, Hal, or 2.
Yeah.
And progressing from passive, deliberate checking to competitive checking, 1 checker, 2 checkers. But the coaches just floated around the neutral zone, interfered with the vision and the open lanes, and the players did a great job. So that, to me, the art of coaching is, if you do a deliberate drill but you jump in to interfere and make them make their own decisions, that's the best part of it, because they thought for themselves, and when the game's on, that's what they have to do.
Right, because the game very often does not look like the drill, does it?
No, not at all.
right? And that's the difference, right? Creating players instead of robots.
But we often have older brothers.
Scoot, I gotta take a call here, but today was great. I appreciate it.
Okay, Peter.
Getting back with you guys. You're awesome.
Peter, I sent you some links on the videos from YouTube and the Minnesota Hockey website. So.
Thanks so much. I'm gonna use them.
Okay, good luck with them. I gotta run too, boys.
Okay,
Good weekend.
guys, thanks for the morning. Hope
See you
to
next week.
listen next week. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to be on it. I'm in Winnipeg visiting my brother who is in the hospital recovering from being hit riding a bike. So,
Oh, bummer.
take care.
See you guys.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.